A very good morning. The excitement of the markets this week, didn't realize that we have already reached Friday. Have a lovely day ahead. Three things we will talk about. Strong US data, Powell's comments on taper, Nike drops 3.4%. Stronger than expected economic reports drove the US dollar higher against all of the major currencies. There is no question that the G3 currencies, which is the USD, Euro and JPY, the US is leading the recovery and data is beginning to show the benefits of a smooth vaccine rollout. 70% of Americans 65 or older have received at least one COVID-19 vaccine dose, with more than a third of the overall adult population receiving their first jab. Businesses are reopening and economic activity is accelerating. As a result, jobless claims fell to about 648k, its lowest level in more than a year. Fourth quarter GDP was also revised up to about 4.3% from 4.1%. The US economy is still a long way from normal, but the numbers show that it is moving in the right direction. With more Americans getting vaccinated every day, further improvements are likely. Personal income and spending numbers are due for release later today, so we'll see how that plays out. All eyes were on the Treasury auction as well yesterday. Treasury yields climbed to session highs after a weak 7-year note auction echoed a disastrous sale last month that helped push yields to a higher plane. The 62 billion auction was awarded 1.30, 2.5 basis points above the note's yield in the pre-auction trading. The benchmark 10-year subsequently climbed to about 1.64, about 3 basis points higher on the day. While investors bought dollars, stocks did not turn higher until after London close, in fact. The reluctance can partly be attributed to Federal Reserve Chair's comments on NPR's morning edition. For the first time since the pandemic began, he talked about a future with less stimulus. Powell said, as we make substantial further progress towards our goals, we'll gradually roll back the amount of treasuries and mortgage-backed securities we've bought. However, all of this would be predicated on a strong recovery, which is ultimately positive for US assets and explains why equities recovered their losses to end the day up. Fewer restrictions and more vaccinations stand in stark contrast with Europe, where fresh lockdown measures were announced this month for Germany, France and Italy. Compared to the US, only 9% of the German population have received their first shot. The broad S&P 500 index fell as much as 1% earlier in the session before recouping all of that and in fact rising by 0.5%. Stocks closely tied to an economic recovery led the rebound, while shares of technology and other high growth companies narrowed some of their losses. These moves helped the S&P 500 as well as the Dow Jones and the Nasdaq avoid another session of losses. From the services side, just to give us a sense of how demand is going to look like, Darden Restaurants, owner of Olive Garden, unveiled a strong forecast for its current quarter and said restaurant sales were stronger than even 2019 levels in the most recent week. Its shares closed 8% higher. In other corporate news, Nike dropped 3.4% on boycott threats in China over its stance against using cotton from Xinjiang. It joined H&M in being targeted on Chinese social media as Beijing seeks to impose real costs on those contributing to questions about its human rights record. Investors are jittery because discretionary spending in China is increasing, so it's important not to lose market share there. Other companies caught up in the controversy include H&M's parent and Burberry, which also fell in trading. Lastly, US banks that clear the next round of stress tests with sufficient capital will be allowed to raise their dividends after June 30th is what the Fed said. Along with the dividend restriction, buyback restrictions will also be lifted is what is getting reported. That's the update. Have a lovely weekend ahead and I'll speak to you on Monday. That's the update. Have a lovely day and have a lovely weekend ahead. Stay safe and healthy and I'll speak to you on Monday.